All right, how do I end a show? Okay. Uh, really
You're,
appreciate
you're
you having me
almost
on.
you're almost
I
there.
know. It's like, oh, I can go lay back in bed in just 2 seconds. You're listening to the Unemployed Bartender Podcast with your host, Keith Carter.
They've already clicked off of the show.
You know, I haven't listened to many podcasts.
This is riveting for your listeners. You do realize this, right?
Yeah, I don't know. What else do you want to talk about?
Do you put like little outtakes in the intro of your podcast?
All of this can be cut out because it's pretty much just a podcast. New episodes every Friday. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the UB Podcast. Now we go.
A puppet show. I think one of the funniest ideas I've heard in a long time.
Yeah.
For television show. In Hollywood, it's a bar where out of work puppet actors go because CGI has put them all out of work. So, and it's funny because I wrote the first verses. You know, it's like there's a place where we like to go because there's a man who's running the show. He makes you feel like you're rolling in dough. Like I was thinking about the classic, you know, the bartender is the guy who's gonna just make you feel better. You know.
That's what we do.
And sadly, the pilot wasn't very good. But the idea for the show, I think, is hysterical.
Well, there's lots of evidence of great ideas and bad execution, I think, throughout society.
Anyway, it just was funny.
That's, yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. I could use a new theme song to the show, so maybe we can work that in somewhere.
Fine.
Well, anyway, welcome back to the Unemployed Bartender Podcast. Excited to have our next guest on the show. We're just going to jump right in. It's a very casual, rainy Wednesday here in New York, and our next guest was a very last-minute booking that I'm extremely excited to have on the show. So, anyway, welcome, Mr. Jerry Marotta.
Okay,
welcome to the show, buddy.
I didn't want to be on the spot, but not remember.
Yeah, and who were you again? So yeah, first of all, I really appreciate you joining the show. I was very much wanting to. Of course, I think you know, and a lot of people out there, because a lot of people listened to our last episode with the creator of Dogecoin, Mr. Billy Marcus, and I wanted to make sure that I had a great follow-up guest to that. So here you are, and here we are.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Well, I don't know if I can live up to. Well, I don't know. Doge hasn't really been, you know. I mean, I haven't been following it much.
Yeah. Well, the whole market's down right now. The whole cryptoverse is kind of trending in a little slight downward.
Doge is really it's trading for pennies, right? I mean, it's
been as high as 8 cents.
Yeah.
It's bouncing between 5 and 6, has for the last couple months.
Right.
But I mean, hell, last year it was 2/100ths of a penny.
I only heard about it when that I saw it like a report. I listened to I watch like CNBC in the morning. I get up early and they were just talking about how Elon Musk was one day he was tweeting Doge.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to already be in Doge at the time and get to take advantage of I mean, it was up like 900% this year, the beginning of the year.
What was?
Doge.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it went from, because it wasn't, I mean, hell, in December, it was under a penny. Right. So people kind of, what kind of sucks, and it's like where I think the crypto market kind of keeps coming in and out in like waves, is because by the time it reaches like mass, like, okay, here's the new thing, everyone's already dumped their, anyone that's profited sold. So people are buying in. Then the price goes down. Then they sell because they think it's a shit investment.
Yeah. I started looking at Bitcoin in October. It was about 10.4. And I waited a week. Yeah. It was 11.8. So I put money into it then. But
I was in it 9,000 last May, and then I sold. I just had to do my taxes today, where it's like, here's where you sold Bitcoin too cheap. Here's where you sold Bitcoin too cheap. I was like, well, this is a.
So you're following cryptocurrency.
Yeah, well, so one of the unintended consequences of a global pandemic and my entire industry shutting down was that I had a lot of, time.
Yeah.
And I'm not a slow learner, and so I just started diving in, and that's pretty much, I mean, hell, without being able to invest in the way that they've made it more accessible now, I think a lot more people would have been. This would have been a lot more devastating of a pandemic. I believe personally, because it helps me tremendously to actually be able to invest and trade and have access to my money and move it about, and it's been a new little hobby. I didn't think I would be the kind of guy that gets up at 4 a.m. to check the pre-market and make sure that I was, ready for the day and checking out what's going up and what's going down. But here we are, an unemployed bartender who's a stock trader guy.
Are you doing? Oh, and are you trading in the market as well?
Yeah. I've got a stock portfolio that I do that's relatively risky because, I mean, what else do we have to lose these days?
Yeah.
And crypto is inherently risky. So yeah, we're out there just trying to figure it out like the rest of them. But let's talk more about you. You've done a couple things through your life that are of note. Tell me a little bit more. I know you're a drummer and you have drummed for a multitude of bands on a multitude of albums.
Right.
Kind of walk me through your story.
Okay, sure. Well, I am a drummer. And I started playing the drums when I was about 10. My older brother is also a drummer and also is also very successful.
Yeah.
So he was, I looked up to him and he was very helpful to me as I was getting.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to help. Having a talented older brother has got to be
doing the same thing. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be great.
He helped me out a lot. So I graduated high school a year early, and I went to summer school. And with my brother's help, he connected me with a band. He had done the record with them on Columbia. This is like 1973. So I went to play with they wanted him to tour with them, but he was too busy, being a session drummer in New York. But he said, "Oh, my little brother's perfect for you guys."
I've got a brother.
Yeah, I've got a brother, and these are college guys. They were in college, and that's how they met. Anyway, so I went out I joined them. I played. I kind of auditioned with them. I got the job to play with them. Then I had to go to my teachers in summer school because it was about a week before summer school ended.
So this was still high school.
Yeah, I'm in high school. So I took my final exam. So graduating early from high school was pretty easy. It didn't take brains.
Yeah.
Just, a motivation.
Correct number of credits and
be motivated. So
yeah,
I spoke to my teachers and they let me take my final exams on the road with me. So I started out doing that with a band called Arthur Hurley and Gottlieb, which was really fun. And in 1973, they were very much like Crosby, Stills and Nash. Arthur Hurley and Gottlieb. Arthur, Hurley, Gottlieb, the three names, Crosby, Stills, Nash. So they were kind of like that was a thing then, that kind of folky, folk rocky kind of thing. So I did that for, I don't know, about a year or two. And then I auditioned to play in a band called Orleans, which was ironically at the time was my favorite band on the planet. So I got an opportunity to audition for them, and I got to be in my favorite band.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was insane. I was 18, and so
you thought life had reached its pinnacle at that point. You had achieved all your entire dreams.
Exactly. So I joined Orleans. That lasted for about, I don't know, 2 years. And the main guy, the guy who started the band, he quit the band. Although the band went on long after that. They're still going. But they had a song called "Dance with Me," that was a big hit before I joined. And then when I joined them, we recorded a song called "Still the One," which was also a very big hit. So that was awesome. So I'm like 18, 19, and I, on the radio all the time, old school radio where, AM radio, pop top 40 radio. It's not like
where
that.
You're the only one on the radio because that's the radio station. Like
just as an aside, since we're supposed to be sitting in a bar drinking, actually, I should go and I will probably pour myself a scotch.
Okay, I'm going to do the same. I have a nice little scotch selection back here.
Okay, but we'll do that in a minute.
Okay.
What's funny is the way I found out about Orleans is my high school girlfriend. She was a year ahead of me, and so she went to college at Ithaca College in New York. And the first time she came home, she had the Orleans album. She said, "This, you got to hear this band. They're great. They play around Ithaca all the time because they were, as it turns out, they were based up there." So she turned me on to them. And then the next time she came home from college, she dumped me. She broke up with me. Now, cut to a year later, coming into Ithaca in a tour bus with Orleans to play a concert at Ithaca College. So it was, everything
worked out.
I couldn't have scripted it. I couldn't have scripted it all any better. So anyway, Orleans went on for about 2 years, and then when the leader of the band quit, I was really despondent. About a month later, I got an opportunity. Somebody had said, like, "Do you have any interest in playing with this guy, an English singer named Peter Gabriel? He's looking for a drummer." And so one thing led to another. And by this was like in June. By August or September, I was flying to England to start rehearsing to tour with Peter Gabriel, who at the time he wasn't really Peter Gabriel. He had been in a band called Genesis.
So this was post Genesis.
He was one of the original members of Genesis.
Yeah.
He quit Genesis in 1975 to go solo. And so he did that. And Genesis went on to have a huge career. But we're talking about 1977. So 77, I joined Peter Gabriel, and, we're touring around. We're doing some recording. I worked with Peter for about 10 years. At that time, I didn't know who Peter Gabriel was. I didn't know who Genesis were. That was not kind of my music, my kind of music. Wasn't something I really listened to. So
was it big here yet at the time, or it just wasn't? You weren't into it, and nobody was into it?
You mean Genesis?
Yeah.
No, they were not very well known here. Not really. Okay. Not like they are now. And then where they became in the 80s, for sure. They were not, and nor was Peter. So it wasn't until really 1986, and Peter did a record called "So," and that had like Big Time and what was the Big Time and I don't know. There were a couple of hits on it, big hits. It was basically the biggest record for about 2 years on the planet.
Okay. I was 5 at the time. I don't remember what was on the radio, but maybe.
It's okay. But back then, the way their music business worked, like somebody would have the biggest record on the planet, like Michael Jackson would have it. Then there was like U2 had a record that was sold 20, 30 million copies,
Yeah, go multiple diamond.
And it was just like, that was the way the music business worked back then. And so, anyway, so then I just, over that period of time with Peter, my career just grew, and I started working with Hall & Oates and Elvis Costello and Stevie Nicks. I just started mostly recording with a lot of different artists.
Yeah, I know when I looked at your discography, it's like you play with these bands, but then your discography of like sessions and album recordings are just enormous. Is that
tons of people?
Did you have a preference? Was it like you toured for a while and then you're like, okay, now I just want to stay home and record?
No.
Or
I always loved. I love touring and I love being in a band per se, even though I was never in the like I did 10 years with Peter. It was like a band, but not it wasn't financially like a band, but
yeah,
like
it's not the same thing as it is
creatively
like,
it was like a band.
yeah.
But but I like doing both. I like studio and I like touring.
So after you've got off tour, you currently, so you're in Woodstock, correct?
Yeah, I live in Woodstock,
and you have
New York.
And you have a studio there, Dreamland Recording Studios?
Yeah, I have a studio called Dreamland. Mm-hmm.
Kind of tell me what you're doing with that.
You know, Dreamland started was you know, I didn't start Dreamland.
Okay.
I have a partner who he started Dreamland in the mid '80s, and by the early 2000s, when the music business in general just basically collapsed. A lot of it, it's all due to digitizing of music and Napster. You know, clever college students, you know, figured out how to take music off the CDs and post it on the internet and give it away.
Yeah.
So that destroyed the music business as we knew it, where people were selling millions of records and they were making gazillions of dollars. That doesn't happen really anymore. Now you can barely sell. A big artist hardly sells 1 million records.
Yeah, but now it's all about what's equivalent streaming units and stuff like that, based on whatever.
It's all based on how to pay the artist as little as you possibly can.
Yes.
I mean, Spotify and those kinds of things. They're totally they're ripping off the artists. I mean, they don't pay. They're not paying well at all.
So one thing I never understood was how, you know, especially I came to age at the Napster age, where when I hit college, 1X CD burners, 1999. The 1X CD burner came out, and we got Ethernet in our dorm that year, my freshman year.
Is that 99?
1999, yeah.
That was your freshman year in college?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you're not a child.
I'm not a child, but I'm not, you know.
What is that? 20 years ago you were freshman, so what were you, like 21 or something?
No, I was 17 then.
17 and a freshman. Oh, okay. And you're a freshman in college. Okay.
Yeah. But I remember when that came out, and, you know, the RAA was coming after everybody and shutting down stuff. And seemed like that was the direction. And when, you know, iPods came out and it was selling songs by the track, I was like, okay, this is a new business model and that's where it's going to go. And I don't understand it seems disconnected to me that Spotify and all these places exist. Like, it seems like that's all against terms of the whole record industry as it exists and previously exists. Like, that's the same as downloading a song off the internet. I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so. For a long time, long before you were around.
Yeah.
There were records, you know, LPs, you know, vinyl.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, there was vinyl. You wanted to buy a record. You want to hear music, a bit, you know, your favorite artist. You have to buy the album.
Yeah.
Okay. Then cassettes kind of came into play, but still, and even when CDs first came out, the only way you could have that music is if you bought it. You had to buy it.
Mm-hmm. And
then eventually, you know, as computers developed and, you know, all the technology developed, you didn't really have to, you know, in particular with CDs, because that's when digitizing came into play. Then you had a CD drive on your computer, and you could pop the CD into your computer and listen to it. You could also download it into your computer, and, you know, you could listen to it, play it. So then things just started to move in the direction where once you put it in your computer, you know, depending on if you had everything's set up properly, then it will just automatically be on your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm jumping way ahead, and you could give the CD to anybody, and they didn't have to buy the CD. They just put it, they download it, they didn't have to pay for it.
Do you have any thoughts on how to? Is the record industry just done, or is it possible to be salvaged? Is there a way to monetize it again that's useful for the actual artist creating music?
Well, nowadays what's happening is that the labels, for as I know it, they're making 360 deals. Well, first of all, record companies stopped signing artists. They stopped signing, and then it became very very popular. Make your own record.
Mm-hmm.
You make the record, and I did many records where the budgets were $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to make a record. Now, as you can imagine, when you're making a record with your band and you're paying for it out of your pocket, you're not going to spend that kind of money.
No, I'm not.
And it worked out really well for record companies because they're like, okay, you don't even really have to have an A&R department that's going out and searching for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, just wait for them to make the music, and then we'll just buy.
Well, we'll
your
see.
label or whatever.
People will approach us, and we'll decide whether we want to put the record out.
Yeah.
And so that's a very interesting. That's one of the things ways that the record companies would benefit. They benefit from that. I mean, it's commonplace now for labels, smaller labels. They don't give you any money. You make the record. They'll promote to some degree. They'll distribute the record in whatever way they can, which is generally not very good.
Really, just put it on Spotify.
They want a lot for it. Well, if you're lucky, they'll get you on Spotify. I mean, that's not easy. Well, they can get you on Spotify, but I mean, who's going to know about your record?
Yeah, they're not going to promote you on Spotify.
Not necessarily. Not
place you on there.
One of the things that seems to be happening now is that if you can get one of your songs on a popular playlist, now apparently you pay to do that. You have to pay to get your song on a popular playlist, which is one way, because even the Spotify playlists, I think, are even replacing radio. Like, people listening to radio.
Yeah, I have my. I just got a new vehicle that has Android autoplay or whatever in it, and I use YouTube Music, and I listen to my Super Mix. That if I listen to a song, it rotates in, and then it just kind of rotates through all the different kinds of songs I've ever listened to, and plays, a nice little mix of music that I enjoy. But I don't even. Yeah, why would I want to listen to local radio when I can listen to exactly what I want? And I think how a lot of people are these days.
I gave into Spotify. I don't know how long ago, maybe a year ago. As a musician, producer, I produce artists and, put records out that, we have it's very, the issue is how do we get the music out there for people to hear it and want to buy it? So, but, I finally broke down and I did the, $10 a month Spotify.
Yeah, I pay for Spotify and YouTube Music, but I'll same kind of way. Like I'm a big proponent of people getting paid. I'm a musician, from back in the day, but I never got to the point where I got to see what it was like to be on a label or anything like that. But I had the opportunity to go there. I didn't take that chance, and then whatever, went elsewhere with my life and haven't done music since. But
yeah.
I don't know. It just seems like there has to be a better way, it seems like there would be a way to hold these systems accountable, or to ensure that there's a certain percentage is going towards these artists. But that might have to be some sort of antitrust legal thing that I don't know or much about, or won't have.
I think the problem is what can happen is if the big companies, they find a way to dive in there and the buy their way in or buy,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? They tend to.
I feel like they're kind of waiting for the industry to kind of settle so they can figure out how to regulate it. But the industry just literally changes every 6 months. And then by doing nothing, they're just letting it run rampant. At least that's how it appears from my view.
I think that the majors are behind Spotify and Pandora.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, and I don't really know enough to talk about it right at the moment, but I've been told that what's in the works now is there's something going on with blockchain.
Oh, NFTs?
Well, no, that's now. That's
Okay.
exploded in the last month or two.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been around a little longer, but I'm seeing that every morning. Like something gets sold for like $6 billion.
Crazy.
No, but it has something to do with what artists are going to be able to do, and it has something to do with blockchain, and that you'll be able to put music up, and you'll be able to sell your music. Nobody will be able to take anything from it, and I don't know enough to talk about it yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's down the pike a bit, but that may be in the works,
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. But I feel like I don't know. It's sad, especially having been a musician, knowing a lot of musicians, knowing a lot of people in music that have made amazing things, people that have made it big, and you're just like, oh, you don't have that much money left. Like I was like, well, there wasn't that much money to begin with.
Yeah,
and it's been like that for just way too long.
Yeah, so that business is, it's I don't know, fascinating. I mean,
on a digression note, like, so when you were a kid, I know, for me, it was about, I got exposed to music and playing together in groups as part of my high school band. I joined when I was in 4th grade, and we were able to work our way up, and I was doing that. Was that something, did that kind of develop later in the 80s and 90s? Did that exist in the 70s? Did you play in school and stuff like that? Or was it just kind of like garage bands and the sort?
Well, I don't know. What do you mean, like with my friends, my schoolmates?
Yeah, no, yeah. When you were like 10, you started playing.
Yeah. That's always been how people get together, and you guys, especially if you're in school, Yeah. I mean, you were what did you play? What instrument?
Well, I played trombone. That's what I went to college for, on a trombone scholarship. But I played bass and guitar, but trombone was my main instrument, and I sang.
Where did you go on a scholarship?
University of Arkansas, in the Razorback Marching Band.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was great.
Awesome.
Got to play, got to study trombone, jazz trombone there, and
I don't know if you're in like 6th or 7th grade, how many bands you're going to be kids you're going to be able to get together with, playing trombone. I just think of it like my kid friends are like playing guitars, bass, keyboards, drums.
Well, that was the beauty of the 90s, because ska bands exploded. And you wouldn't believe the number of asks I had to join bands at that time.
Right. So, I mean, I was playing in 7th grade, 8th grade, all through that I was playing with my friends.
Okay. But not like an organized band, like at school or anything like that.
We would jam together, but I mean, we had a band, but we never did anything more than, rehearse at someone's house, my house or one of the other guys' houses. So we didn't. Well, we would play like at the, like at the community center, the Knights of Columbus, you know what I mean, church basement, or a school function. We would play there,
Yeah, there's nothing better than, I think my senior year, me and my friends were in charge of the school dance and the music that was played. Normally they just hire a DJ or whatever, but we hired our band, or my band, and then this other like really heavy metal band called Mind Rage from Hot Springs that actually formed. Are you familiar with the band Evanescence?
Oh yeah.
So John and Rocky LeCompte were in this tiny band Mind Rage.
Oh, wow.
Before they joined that, and then Will Boyd played bass for a bunch of bands. But
I really like that. I like them a lot.
Yeah,
That was a while ago
that was. I actually found Ben Moody, the lead guitarist, we went to third grade together. We weren't in the same class, but we had GT, the Gifted and Talented, together every day and I didn't remember it until I saw the album come out, and I was like, Ben Moody. And I looked him up, and I was like, oh, it's the same damn kid.
That's funny. Where did you grow up?
I'm from Arkansas. That was in Little Rock. We moved to Jesseville, Arkansas, outside of Hot Springs, when I was 9. So,
all right.
But those guys were from Hot Springs, and they were. Anyway, it was this heavy rock band that included some really famous, like future, like very talented group, and obviously went on to bigger, better things. And then my ska band, and it was that's the kind of stuff you can expect when you're a high school and they have it like, hey, we're booking ourselves. We got a great opening act for us. But
when you say hired, you guys got paid?
No.
Okay.
We just
okay.
We hired ourselves with air quotes.
Another trivia question. Black Oak, Arkansas.
Yeah. I saw him play like 6 years ago, and his jeans are just as tight as they were in the 70s.
Oh, that's funny. That was like early 70s.
Like
70s.
uncomfortably, as you know, if you're front row, it's a lot to take in. And he's real proud of it.
And they're still kicking around? I mean, I just remember them from that far back. I mean, early 70s.
Yeah, there was an all Arkansas like festival
right
in the River Market Pavilion, and they were the closing band probably about 5-6 years ago.
What about Bill Clinton? Did you get him to come play saxophone?
No, actually, but when I was in 11th grade, me and the buddies had a jazz band. We wrote our own music, and we got to do a private show for him when he came to Hot Springs, and they dedicated the old Hot Springs High to the William Jefferson Clinton Art School or something. And the Hot Springs Jazz Society called me and the buddies because they knew we had a band, and they're like, you guys want to play this thing? And we're like, hell yeah, we do. So that was pretty cool. 11th grade, getting to play for Bill. But I've seen him. I sang for him when I was in kindergarten, when he was the governor. So he's been around my life for a while. But that's just the Arkansas way.
What about Ronnie Hawkins? Is he from Arkansas?
I don't think so.
Well, you'd know.
I feel like I would.
I thought he was from
Canadian.
I thought he might have been from Arkansas, but I don't know.
Oh, his origin is Arkansas, but he's Canadian?
Right.
Oh, he was born in Huntsville, Arkansas, 2 days after Elvis Presley was born. Okay. Hell, he went to U of A. I didn't even look at there. Thank you. I got another guy I can add to my Arkansas trivia.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash is from there, born there, and dies.
In Arkansas, from Arkansas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a native son, we claim.
Wow. Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people from Arkansas.
There are a lot of people from Arkansas. Currently, about 3 million of them. And surely one of them is going to do something amazing in the next 20, 30 years. So.
Is that the population of Arkansas?
Yeah.
3 million people?
Yeah.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, it's a big place. It's crazy moving from a state that's of decent size, 6 hours corner to corner. And there'd be more people in my borough than here in Brooklyn than there are that growing up in Arkansas. It's an interesting perspective.
Is that where you are? Are you in Brooklyn now?
I'm in Brooklyn, yeah.
Awesome. So you had the band experience.
Yeah, I've done a couple things. I miss it.
I played in the 4th grade. I started studying clarinet. I found an old report card from the 4th grade, Mr. Salingo. He wrote, Mr. and Mrs. Marotta, Jerry has absolutely no aptitude for the clarinet. So then I started playing the saxophone. So I started taking saxophone lessons. But, at that time, I think around the 4th grade, probably, I was 10 years old, I started playing the drums. Because my older brother, he had a buddy that, this is like in 1965, 66, he had a good friend of his was drafted, went to Vietnam. and he was a drummer. And my brother talked him into letting my brother keep his drums at our house while he was gone. And my brother was in college, like his first year of college. My brother, who ended up being a very successful drummer, he didn't start playing the drums until he was in college. And he was about 18. I guess I was about 10. And but when the drums came in, you know, I'm like an ADD, ADHD, like out of my mind. So
right there with you.
Back in those days in the 60s, there was no ADD, no ADHD. It was just hyper. Not Jerry, he's hyper. He's such a hyper kid, you know? So, but when I sat down at a drum kit, it was like, I was just like,
everything comes into focus.
It was like Ritalin or something. I don't even know. It was just like it's like both arms, hands, and legs going, head, looking, blah, blah, blah. So I just started playing the drums. When I should have been practicing the saxophone, I was playing the drums.
That's not, I wanted to be a drummer. And I still.
It's never too late to start.
Did. I mean, I drum on everything my entire life. I take 2 long things and I create my own whatever at all times. Always. I still can't help it. But I wanted to play saxophone in 4th grade. That was my goal. And then when I came in there to the band room, and the band director was like, "No, you're not a saxophone player. You're a trombone player." And I said, "Okay."
That's because they needed somebody to play trombone.
Well, but also I have, I have a good ear. I can hear music with my ear, and trombone is, you need someone that can hear with your ear to play trombone. It's required. And I think he realized that there weren't that many other people that couldn't handle not having a key to press.
Because you had to be able to hear when the...
Yeah, you got to have, it's like, 1 1/4 inches out is second position. And if it's off or your tuning slides are off, you have to be able to hear to adjust to hit that exact note. It's one of the more difficult instruments to play because it's, it's entirely by ear. But I still always wanted to play drums. And when they get the quad sets out in marching band or whatever, and they'd have the big bass drums or whatever, all of us upperclassmen later in my life, we would, if there was younger drummers playing those things, we'd take it over for the drum sequences and stuff. We're like, "No, I'm playing the timpani part this time," but don't, because we knew it all. We'd heard it our whole lives, and but we couldn't do anything complicated. But I think everyone that's ever been a musician is always like, "Man, I wish I could play drums like that," because it's that there's something about like, okay, my left foot's doing this, my right foot's doing this, my left, and then keeping that all together. Not everybody can do it.
Sure.
So that's one of those things. It's like, okay, you have great hand-eye coordination. We're going to put you on drums. Like, you've got a good ear. And then everybody else, like, all right, y'all can push buttons to make noise. I believe in you.
Yeah. I mean, I just taught myself how to play. I played along to records. I never studied. I don't know how to read. I mean, I'm basically, I don't know what you'd call me. I don't.
A classic drummer.
I learned how to play. I learned how to do what I do, and I'm pretty creative. And since I play guitar a bit, bass, keyboards.
Yeah,
I can play them. Not like I can't go do a gig on them, but I know how to make them sound like something. But the drums were much easier because you don't have to know chords and stuff. Just
yeah.
I basically grew up in the 60s listening to black music, Motown, Motown, Stax, Philly, but it was all soul music. I mean, I was snob. Like, I was very snobby about music. I didn't like rock music so much. I mean, I liked jazz, and then I liked Motown. I just liked Motown music. So I would put records on and I would just sit and play, and those records, those classic Motown records, the beat is very steady and simple, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Those records they're not all over the place. It's not progressive, it's not wild, you just have to be able to get this to work, hi-hat, snare, just basically groove. You just have to groove. If you could groove, and then I expanded it to playing some fills, But
But that's a great music to learn because that music is alive. Like any good jazz or soul, that it has a beat, it has a heartbeat, which is the drum. And if you can find that, because that takes us everywhere else we're going. I had the pleasure of playing with the most amazing drummer that I've ever seen in my life. That year that we did that show, there was me and one other kid who was a saxophone player who was like all world. He'd never we do competitions, all state, all region, 4 states. Every competition we ever went to, he was first chair. I was good. I was first chair most of the time in Arkansas. All state, a little lower. In 4 states, I was like 7th. I was good, but I didn't practice like I should have. He was literally 8-10 hours a day. He's a professional saxophone player for years. But we had these 3 kids move from Las Vegas that went to the Las Vegas Music Academy, and they were the #1 drummer and the #1 trumpet player on the West Coast. And they moved to this little town of Jesseville, Arkansas. And we all just looked at each other like, yeah, should we start a band immediately? And then this bass player moved from Minnesota, who had already performed on the Letterman show as a 10th grader, moved also to our town. And then that was the genesis of our jazz band.
I mean, those are the story.
That's everything.
I'm going to do a podcast, your podcast, except you're going to be sitting here and I'm going to be sitting there, because that's a great story, man. That's awesome. There's a lot of maybe, I don't know if it happened. I can't say, and I don't want to sound like an old fogey, but back in the old days, and I'm talking way before you were doing that, that's how bands got together, like
on happenstance.
Yeah, exactly.
It was just like you discover someone and then it clicks. And that's the good old days. It's almost harder to make a band these days.
Oh my God. I mean, for so many reasons, that whole band thing, now with like Pro Tools and, with digital recorders of all, back in the day in the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, if you wanted to make a record and you wanted drums, you had to get a drummer into the studio, and so you had to get groups of, I've worked all over the world, Japan, doing records with people, LA, London, Rome, Spain, where people, you had to compile a group of players, get together, and you have to work out the music together, and that's how records were made. Now everybody's working individually at their DAWs with a million samples and keyboards up the wazoo, and you don't even have to have keyboards anymore. It's all, you get you can get programs with a million keyboard sounds.
I just saw an ad for, have you seen the Arcade by Output? It's like it's some, I guess, preloaded. It's got like hundreds of thousands of different sounds and preloaded things that you could literally, like, I guess, throw together a song, like a unique song, in like 10 or 20 minutes.
Kind of like GarageBand?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like that. I haven't downloaded either of them, but
I don't use anything like that. I just do. I do what I do, and because I'm a drummer. That's the biggest. I think one of the big things that people have that people do is they use loops. They use drum loops.
Yeah.
When I hit my heyday, like my major heyday in the mid '80s, drum machines. Music started to turn to drum machines. Not loops, but not computers, but like drum machines started to be, you hear the drums on records. A lot of records were made with drum machines. It became like a thing, and that took away a lot of my lot of work for me, as opposed to my brother, who in the 70s, when he was in early 80s, that was his heyday as a drummer. There was nothing. There were no drum. There was nothing like that. You just had to hire a drummer.
His competition was other drummers.
Yeah, you wanted drums, you had to hire somebody who played the drums. It's very interesting, and it's I feel very lucky that I grew up at a time when music was what it was. I mean, the thing is now, kids, young bands like 20-year-old kid, he doesn't know what it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I'm glad that I caught the 90s. I mean, the 90s was my entire teenage years and childhood, of adult childhood, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, I got to experience pretty much all that. I had tapes, and then I remember getting my first CDs. And then it wasn't until college that it was like, what is this? Napster? What the hell is this?
Yeah.
I can get anything, and it was a lot of us hit, but also, I credit Napster was what exposed me to all of the rest of the music that I had heard about my whole life, that I hadn't, I heard the Beatles were good, but I did never heard other than what was played on the radio. When we were listening to whatever my dad's station was listening to, I got to hear some, different songs throughout my life. But we grew up in the country, it's not, I had country music and then whatever we played at school. So, there definitely, like everything, there was definitively positive outcomes that resulted from that. I think people were exposed to more music, and it kind of created a little bit more innovation at first, because people started to sample and experiment with these other different genres that hadn't really ever been kind of played with before.
Yeah.
But I think we've now devolved into a just chaotic, just overabundance of every single thing. Every single sound that has ever existed is available to our fingertips now. And that kind of takes some of the fun away from it, to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I worked with Peter Gabriel from a time where technology was like Prophet 5 or Memory Moog. Those were the first polyphonic synthesizers.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter was very up on the technology. And I think I've had this conversation with him as well, that I mean, in the end, he became, I think, overwhelmed by technology, to the point
technological advances.
When I was working with Peter, we got into a room together and we used to play, we used to jam and work stuff out. As time went on, things changed, and I think he was so interested in trying different things, but then there's a point where, I mean, it's just overwhelming.
Yeah, you've experimented with too much.
Yeah, exactly. And it would just hold him up for years, trying different things. And
I mean, I get that. If you're a creative and you feel like you've hit a spot, then you're just kind of constantly searching for that other thing that is in there somewhere.
You have been in situations where you play with other people, interacting, where you hear somebody playing something, the bass player, the guitar player, that your mental your computer starts going, and it's making you, you're playing, you're processing that at a very rapid rate, and starting to play other notes and play around. You know what I mean? I know.
But that's the heart and soul of music that doesn't exist anymore. Because when you take away those components of creating music, where you're like you're saying, like, I get inspired by hearing you play this certain way, and you're like, oh, that gives me an idea for this, which inspires Jim or Tim or whoever. Be like, and then they're like, okay, let's try it like this now, or let's slow this down, take that out, add this in. Let's see how. Okay, that's great. Now let's add something else. And that collaborative effort is, I don't know, that's a beautiful process for anyone that's been involved, as you know. And I think I think a lot of music is missing that kind of heart and soul these days. And I think that might be a root. I think we just discovered why.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I don't know if you played sports, but sports,
yeah,
it's a team effort. You can't eliminate the team. Got to play. No. If you're playing football, there's 11 guys. You play with them, and they push you. Basketball, 5 guys on a court. Hockey, whatever it is. I mean,
yeah. If you place that with a robot in one spot, that would make he's probably going to get pretty predictable.
Right.
He's gonna...
Music, there's, uh, I don't know. It's hard to say. I still occasionally come across stuff that I like. And then I don't listen to the radio that much per se. But yeah, I don't know. It's a strange thing. I stumble across stuff, and like you said with Spotify, like if you're looking at certain things like Fleetwood Mac, let's say, or then it's a little bit scary to some degree that what they're doing is they're gathering data.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I ultimately I think what our personal data is what makes things like Facebook worth billions of dollars. That's what people are buying. That's what people are buying. They want that's what they accumulated on Facebook. And then when you know what I mean? But
yeah, that's why I do everything the opposite every day, so they never can quite figure out.
But with Spotify, if you start to, like you said, you start looking at some of the things that you like, and then they start to suggest things that you might like that are like that, and that can be a good thing. And ironically, that you can hear something that you wouldn't have stumbled across. And
that is one of, like I said, there's always a positive in whatever the negative is. That is a beautiful part of the access that we have now. Is like, hey, I noticed you like these guys. Here's 12 other bands that you've definitely never heard of, but they kind of sound like these guys too. So check them out, and they're usually pretty right. I've discovered quite a few bands that I really enjoy that way. So who knows? I just can't wait until we can get back to going and supporting musicians in person, because that's obviously the easiest way to make sure you're taking care of whoever you enjoy.
I play in a couple of different bands, and we haven't really been able to play out since last year.
Yeah. Music industry is in the same spot we are, kind of just extended furlough.
I don't know what it's like down there. Are they starting to loosen things up so that you can get a bartending job again?
So, yes, there are some places that are open. There's that kind of that line. There's no way to earn anywhere close to what we were earning before, which takes away any incentive. Like, I'm not going to go back to work for literally minimum wage when that's about all that you can earn when there's 8 customers coming. And it's not like they're paying a living wage on the employee side. So it's going to be a difficult transition back into the hospitality industry for a lot of, especially seasoned professionals that just can't afford to go back to nothing unless it's actually open.
Right.
Because, we make significantly more money than is what's available right now to us. If you have regulars, if you have a good bar, if any number of things, but it's tricky. And I don't think that they've really figured out how. I don't think they've taken that into account yet. Like, hey, let's get these bars back open. Let's get these bartenders back to work. But also we're only going to have at most half the customers. And everyone has to, follow these specific guidelines, which takes away the whole, like I said, the whole point of bartending for me is the conversation, and we can't do that. So
yeah,
I'm just a glorified, cashier at that point. Like, you ordered a beer, here's your beer. I've done nothing to make you tip me, but also I need you to tip me a whole lot more than you normally would because there's hardly anybody here. This is a broken system that's not going to be, that's been fully exposed by this. And I don't see the answer back anytime soon until stuff is just open. So I guess we'll see there. But
I think we're on the right track at the moment now. More and more vaccines. They're lowering the age now.
My daughter's about to go back to school into blended, some in person, some home for the first time this year for her freshman year of school. She's going to the one of the performing arts school here in Brooklyn that she had to audition for, and all of this, and she still hasn't even set foot on campus one single day.
High school?
Since she's been to school there. Yeah, high school. She's a freshman.
Mm-hmm.
So, she's going back, but I don't know. It's hopefully this vaccine schedule kind of kicks up, and we'll just see. We'll see how it goes. I don't think any of us knew what 6 months was going to be like 6 months ago, and I don't think we're going to have any idea 6 months from now. So
it's interesting, because some businesses, not yours or mine, I don't know if they'll ever go back.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that had like somebody was got a job with Amazon, and so that now, he was working out of his apartment, and they gave him a budget to buy a really nice chair, really comfortable, but like set himself up to work at home. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of businesses that can operate like that. They don't have to have like big office space so that all of these employees can be there, come to work every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and New York won't work that way. We can't let people sit at home. We need people in the streets.
Right.
It's the whole thing. That's the economy in New York, is the people. We need the people. But who knows? I say, but who knows? I guess that's my safe transition. I don't know what's going on, but who knows? I think we've recorded a podcast. I think we've talked for over an hour.
Yeah.
That's usually my goal, is to talk for at least an hour, and we did that. So what I like to do before I go every time is I like to do what I call closing time lightning round, which I ask you a series of questions that are guaranteed to have people approaching you on the streets because of how controversial your answers are. Are you ready?
I think I am.
It's not that.
Go ahead.
It's not that big of a deal. All right. Apple or Android?
Apple.
Dive bar or cocktail bar?
I'd say cocktail bar.
Okay. What cocktail do you order?
I'm
just
not
walked into my bar.
You're not going to make
nobody's
no bartender's made a living because of me coming in and out. I'm not big on bars, but what cocktail would I order? I mean, I like to drink scotch. I mean, you know what I like?
Speaking of, we're supposed to have some scotch real quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, should we do that?
Yeah, I'm gonna go grab me a glass.
Do you have time? Do we have time?
Yeah, of course. So I'm gonna do this Abelauer 16 that I've been.
Oh no, I'm not even gonna tell you. I'm a single malt guy, but somebody gave me this, and it's open. So.
Wow. So right before the pandemic, I was a single malt specialist.
Really?
For this company. I would travel and do tasting notes and test. And one of the companies I worked with was Abelauer. And anyway, I got a bottle of the 12 to 16. And they have a couple. I don't know. I have more, but anyway.
Cheers. This is not what
I forgot how good it was.
Anyway, I like scotch.
Well, because I've had this bottle for over a year, and you can see I've still got a little bit left. It's been a minute since I've had a glass. So.
Man, good man. I'll tell you, the drink I like that I drink at a bar sometimes I order Campari and tonic. I'm a Campari. I like Campari.
I do a lot with Campari. We actually had the head of I don't even know what, I guess the head of people or the head of branding for Campari was on our show a couple months ago.
Awesome.
And we talked, if you check that episode, you can find all different kinds of recipes for Negronis and different Campari based mixed drinks. So
yeah,
there's a coffee Negroni recipe on that episode that I highly recommend.
Okay.
All right. What's your favorite tour you've done?
Favorite tour? Hall & Oates.
Do you have a least favorite tour?
No. Hold on one second. You know that you're going to be in this. You're in this. It's okay. My girlfriend Emily, she just came home.
Hey, Emily.
She's I don't know if it matters that she's walking around because that's our kitchen behind me.
Yeah, I mean, if it's good enough for MSNBC to have people walking around in their background, I think
you can walk around.
On our show.
You can walk around back there. Least favorite tour? I don't really have one.
Well, that's good. I don't remember a lot of my least favorite stuff
I
either,
managed
so
to enjoy, all of the
that's the best way to be. Let's see. Favorite crypto?
of all the cryptos.
Yeah. What's your favorite? What's your one you're happiest about right now?
Uh, you know, I, Bitcoin, obviously.
Yeah, that's the smart one. I mean, that's the one you ever. If you could pick one that you would like to hold a coin of, everyone would pick Bitcoin. I would hope. What's your most memorable show? Like, what's the first thing that pops to your mind? This show, never forget it.
You want a show where I was performing?
That you played, yeah.
We did a show outside of Paris. I think it's like the Communist Festival, Faith Day Humanity, I think it's called. I think there were like 180,000 people there. It's an outdoor concert.
That's amazing.
that was pretty memorable.
Is that the most people you've played in front
of? Probably, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't meet a lot of people that have played in front of more people than I have, just by virtue of having played in the Razorback Marching Band, and I got to play in the Cotton Bowl when we beat Texas in 2000,
wow.
Which was great.
Nice.
There was almost 100,000 people there,
yeah,
which was cool. But that's 180,000. That's that's got to be close to as big as you get, other than like Live Aid or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. It was a sea of people.
So, what's your favorite, like, most memorable show that you've been to that you weren't playing in?
Oh, could have been Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen. This is, well, I'm assuming your
that's just first one that pops in your head.
Your viewers are not kids, so there's probably a lot of kids that don't even know who Joe Cocker is, but he's been dead.
No, our listener base skews 35 and up, pretty consistently.
Yeah, that was one. Traffic was one back in the 70s. Leon Russell was. I just saw so many shows. Mostly the ones in the 70s are just awesome, and then in the 90s I was touring with the Indigo Girls. And I went to see.
Did you do Lilith tour with them?
I did the first two Lilith tours with them.
That's cool.
But we were doing doing a show in Park City, Utah. We got there a day early, and it's an outdoor thing, like Jones Beach, the thing Jones Beach or whatever. And it was the Horde Festival that they were there the night before. So we got to go to that, and I saw Neil Young and Crazy Horse. I got to see them, and that was awesome.
That sounds cool.
But I've seen so many great shows.
I've seen a lot. I can't think of anything in particular. But I saw Elvis Costello in Chicago on this little amphitheater right off, just south of the Navy Pier. I don't know how familiar you are with that area, but I don't know what it's called.
Right.
I saw that show. That was pretty cool, just because of I just was there, and a friend was like, "Hey, I got tickets to see Elvis Costello if you want to go." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then it happened to be in that really beautiful place, like right on the Lake Michigan.
Right.
That stands out. But I think my favorite shows have been Hole in the Walls, or when I've seen, like Nate. You know who Nate Roos is, or the Format, or the band Fun.
Oh, Fun! I know who
Fun. So everyone knows who Fun is now, but before that album, they had a different sound as Fun on their first album, and the digression from that to the Format, which was their band before that, is not far. And before he was Fun, he would play these small shows. He played he sat on a stool in a Hastings in Conway. I saw him there. Saw him with some tiny, opening for these bands that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
I think those are the ones that I've always enjoyed the most, where it's just like, I discovered a new band because I went to a show, and their opening act became my favorite, like one of my favorite bands. Far, far more impressive and better than the band that they were opening for. let's see. I think that's it. I think we asked all the questions. We did all the things. We've had our customary glass of scotch that we've shared together. That's the new tradition that will start this show. I really appreciate you joining me. Like I said, there's a nice rainy day. We shared some coffee. We shared some scotch. This is about as good as it gets in terms of meeting and having a conversation these days. So,
yeah, awesome.
if there's a way for people to contact you or check out what you're doing, is there what's some social medias or some things that you would like to?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, jerrymarotta.com, dreamlandrecording.com is the studio. We have a band called the Goo Goo Dolls. They're at Dreamland now for the next couple of months.
Oh, cool.
I don't know if you remember those guys, but
very familiar with Goo Goo Dolls. They were the soundtrack of my high school senior year, probably.
Exactly. And I have a YouTube channel, Jerry Marotta drums something, or I don't even know. But there's a lot of great stuff up there, like different bands I play in, shows, whatnot. So yeah, all of those things.
Yeah. Well, y'all go check those things out.
Some Jerry Marotta, and then whatever that goes along with Jerry Marotta.
I feel like I can just type Jerry Marotta into Google and it just pulls you up. So I feel like everyone else can do that probably too. But
sure.
If you're interested in following them, finding them, learning more about Dreamland, seeing other things,
please
make sure you go check all that stuff out. For me, of course, you can also follow me at the UB Podcast on all social medias, and on Twitter, Keith Carter 1981, and on Instagram, Keith A. Carter. Make sure you find me, follow me, find this show, and subscribe or download. I don't know we're on a bunch of different platforms, and there's a bunch of different ways that you can interact with our show, but figure out one of them and do that. Share it, tell people about it. Really appreciate all the new listeners that we've got over the last couple months. I want to keep growing this thing. So, like I said, thank you guys for listening, and thank you, Jerry, for being on the show.
Awesome. Thanks.
We've got a great guest bartender coming up on our next segment, and you guys can find out about that on the other side. I'll see y'all there. All right, welcome back to the other side of the Unemployed Bartender podcast. Really excited for our guest bartender today, joining me all the way from Texas and soon to be in Oklahoma. Wonderfully talented and experienced bartender. I'm very excited to have her on the show. Welcome to the show, Maren.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So I understand that you're actually you're in the process of leaving Texas, about to head to Oklahoma for a new opportunity up there. What's going on with that? Where are we going to be able to find you here in a couple of months?
I am. So I am currently in the process of moving from San Antonio, Texas to Oklahoma City. My laptop is actually propped up on moving boxes right now. So, but
over under on how long that'll be after you've moved. Still having it propped up on some moving boxes. It's always about 6 months for me before I move in.
Who knows? So I did quarantine here. I've been in Texas for about 2 years now. It was just kind of a lot, and I needed a change. So got a lot of good friends in Oklahoma City, and I am going to be relocating up there just the beginning of April. And
Excellent.
I'm pretty excited about it. So.
And you're going to be at Sidecar Bar, and you're going to be at a couple different places there. Is that right?
Yeah, so I'm just going to be bartending for a bit, trying to get all of my moving money back.
That's a bartending hack. That's why you can you move to a new city, and if you can get a bartending gig there, wherever it is, doesn't matter. You can immediately, within 2 weeks, know everyone you need to know, find all the places that you need to be, and it's such a life hack to bartend in a new city, no matter what you plan on doing after you get there. I've always done it. It looks like you're doing it too. So.
Yep, I'm very fortunate that I know all of the right people to have made that dream come true for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, now we both know one more additional person. You know someone in New York now, and I know someone in Oklahoma City. So
exactly.
I'm sure it'll pay itself forward at some point in the future.
Exactly.
So I was like, any chance I can get to meet, talk to, and just pick the brain of someone in the industry, I try to. It's just a great opportunity to make connections and expand the people that you have inside of your circle of influence. 'Cause I notice
Hmm.
we have a lot of the same friends, but it's at least on the bar world, there's a lot of
Yep,
movers and shakers out there.
definitely.
So you said you've been quarantining in Texas. I, from up here, Texas looks like an insane place to be experiencing this quarantine. As an Arkansan, I consider Texas a terrible place to do anything pretty much anyway. But what's it been like to have been there, and what's your experience been like? I understand you said it's not been great, and you would need a change of scenery from like an industry side and perspective, and just personally, like what's it been like down there?
So, Texas in general has been really interesting. I feel like they've been a lot looser on, um, restrictions and everything. Obviously, Abbott says that COVID is over, so there's no mask mandate anymore, which is just absolutely insane to me.
Yeah,
Um, and then we also had the snowpocalypse down
yeah,
here this year. So 90% of the people that I knew had zero power, zero heat, zero water. Um, During that week, my apartment complex luckily never actually lost water. And one of my best friends who used to live here moved to Brazil a couple months ago. So we had his whole apartment and we housed a couple of people that were looking for shelter. But it's just absolutely crazy that there were literally people that were seeking active shelter because, uh, ERCOT failed us.
yeah. Terrible, just all around governance, and I don't, and you would think that it was so bad that you would think it would be like, okay, we made a mistake. Let's like go back and relook at this.
You would
But
think,
then you
and
realize you're
there's
dealing with Texas, and they're just like double down on it because everything, even doubling down, is bigger in Texas.
Yep, and maybe I haven't seen it, but it's like they haven't even put out an apology as far as I know, or
Yeah.
like any kind of public statement, which is just insane to me.
They won't do that because people will forget in a year, and all of their and this is just true story. This is what they'll do. They do it every time. They're gonna blame
Mhm.
it on green energy when it comes time to election next time. They're gonna be like, all of that green energy, all of that failed us, and therefore, which will be a true statement because they
Sure.
didn't winterize any of the stuff that they did. So all the stuff will be true, but they'll just leave out all the factual information that
Mhm.
supports why it's wrong. And then we'll just see it over and over again. That's why I don't know if I could ever do Texas, and I completely understand why you're getting out.
Where in Arkansas are you from?
Pretty much everywhere. I lived in pretty much, I guess, every city, every major city in Arkansas, and a couple of little tiny ones.
I've only been to Fayetteville, Arkansas. So,
Okay, yeah, that's where I went to college.
okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Lovely place. Yeah, it's well, we're in the if you're a basketball fan at all, for the people that are listening and for you as well, but it's the Sweet 16 is today, and we play Oral Roberts from Tulsa, Oklahoma, actually, not far from
Okay.
where you're moving, for a chance for a berth in the Elite Eight. Very exciting time. I've got Arkansas flags that I ordered in off of the internet that are hanging from every window in my apartment in Brooklyn right now. Uh, and I just drive around listening to Chris Stapleton's Arkansas as loud as I can, and call the hogs with me, and my brother's visiting right now, so we've been
Nice.
having a good time with it. But I I have a joke about Oklahoma involves Texas that I tell like all the time. I feel like because I keep talking, but I'm gonna tell you too, just so you know. Do you know why Texas doesn't fall into the Gulf of Mexico?
I do, but please tell me.
Oh, because Oklahoma sucks.
I heard that joke for the first time like a month ago, right before I
Ah,
started,
yeah.
right
The,
before I started preparing to relocate up there, and I heard it and I was like, okay, yeah, no, that's pretty funny. And then I drove up there and I was like, this guy just told me this joke about Oklahoma and Texas, and I repeated it, and all of everyone in Oklahoma was just kind of like, okay.
It's more of a joke for people that aren't involved, to enjoy and appreciate, I think.
I think so too.
You know,
I got a kick from it being from Salt Lake, but
yeah. So you're from Utah then?
I am from Utah. Yeah, most of the industry people I know you know me as the Utah girl. So
Okay, the Beehive State.
it is.
I spent a lot of time in southern Utah,
Mm.
Moab and Bryce Canyon. I'm trying to think of some others. It's a beautiful place. I love it out there.
I always tell people that like southern Utah should 100% be on your bucket list because it's
Oh, yeah.
indescribably
If you haven't gone to
beautiful.
Zion, the Slot Canyons, Moab itself, and then you've got Arches and Canyonlands.
Hmm.
Utah to me is like Arkansas. They're beautiful, beautiful natural resources and just so many things that you would not expect to see there. And no one
Hmm.
really talks about those things. They
Yeah,
kind of
I
talk
went
about
for
the
a
other stuff.
hike in the Ozarks while I was in Fayetteville, and it was just like breathtaking. So,
Yeah. There, and there's so many places. People accuse me of being like a paid traveler for the state of Arkansas because people ask me, I'm like, well, did you know? They're like, tell me about Arkansas. I was like, okay, you got 25 minutes to an hour. I'll give you a nice detailed little trip down my memory lane.
people ask me for recommendations, and I'm like, oh well, like I can cover all of your bars and restaurants for any city that you want to go to, but anything other
Yeah.
than that, don't ask me.
Yeah. In this industry, we've got, we're a pretty good resource for travel because what we have to offer is the right bartender to talk to because that's the key to unlock. Like I was saying, it's a life hack to become one, and then it's also a life hack to go to a bar,
Hmm.
a dive bar or a bar that's got a really strong local scene, like a connected scene with a nice home bar. And then you can just let loose, take over the whole city. That's what I do every time, at least.
I remember vacationing
Yeah.
vaguely.
Why don't you run me through all the different things that you've done? Let's fill us in on your credentials in the field and then kind of what you're most looking forward to after things open back up.
So I got a start in the craft cocktail industry at like the earliest age that I possibly could in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I started bar backing
What's that,
like the
35?
yeah, exactly. The day I turned 41. No, the day I turned 21, I was basically already bar backing. I had knocked on the door of the bar across my street every day for like weeks, trying to give my resume to the owner. And, eventually they hired me just to get me to stop harassing them, I
Just
think.
stop.
Uh-huh.
It's honestly, anyone listening, it's the best. Almost every job I've ever got was just like, hey, I'm standing right here. You need someone to get a job to.
Yep.
How about this guy?
Had basically zero like service industry experience. Been a waitress at a Vietnamese restaurant for a bit, but other than that, like zero alcohol, zero bar um, knowledge. So that was a really huge learning experience for me. Trained under Amy Eldridge, who worked at Milk and Honey, was one of Sasha's um, students. Wonderful, wonderful. I count myself blessed to have been able to learn from her every day. Um, and then one of my coworkers at Undercurrent Bar actually had attended Camp Run Amok the year before, which is a whiskey camp in Kentucky run by Lush Life
Yeah.
Productions. And she had kind of sent me the application link for that year and was like, hey, you should apply for this thing. Like, I know you're really into learning right now. And like, it was a really good experience. You get to go and tour the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and all of this. And I was like, cool. Yeah. I had basically zero idea what it was.
Mhm.
Came home from our company Christmas party, put in a very drunk application. I have no idea what I wrote, and got accepted. So that kind of sparked my whole journey into the traveling bartender world. Um, and after that, I did like Tampa Repeal Day that year. That's a USBG Tampa fundraiser for Repeal Day, which was a wonderful experience. I was on the batch team for that. So again, just shaking huge amounts of alcohol in white paint buckets because
Yeah.
That's what we actually like to do. And then
Yeah.
since then, I have, I've been a counselor at Camp Run Amok. I have done Portland Cocktail Week Varsity Squad, which is basically kind of preparing for Portland Cocktail Week and then executing all of the events there. I've been a red coat for Tales of the Cocktail. I've done Team Taco for San Antonio Cocktail Conference. That's actually the first time I came to San Antonio was for that. And then I ended up moving here. I've done pop-ups pretty much everywhere that you can think of. One of my very dear friends, BQ, actually hosts me in New York pretty often for going up at Vaughn, which is just a wonderful experience always. But yeah.
Well, hopefully that can happen again soon, because that would be great. You'll be in my city.
Exactly. We actually have plans within our Pokemon Go quarantine group to do a Pokemon Go and spaghetti going up at Vaughn. So keep your eye out for that.
I will. I actually got to play Pokemon Go for the first time, and I guess I was doing it heavy in like mid-pandemic. I kind of picked it back up and was like, because I'd lived on top of a gym, which made it just real easy. But then I moved, and now I'm like, oh, there's 3 gyms I live in the middle of a block, and there's one on one corner and two on the other, and it's been winter. So I'm like, no way in hell I'm getting out walking in the winter doing this. But
see, I also live on a gym, and then there's 4 Pokestops outside. I live at the Contemporary Arts Museum here.
Yeah. Well, then you're good. That makes it hard not to play, because you could just literally do nothing and
I was
get all
just
your
sitting on my
streaks.
couch.
Yeah. But for the first time, I've had my sister and her 3 kids were up here, and they all play, and we took down a Thunderous in a 5-star gym because for the first time I had a whole crew that I could roll in and be like, you know what, Thunderous, you're mine, and he was. But I just caught the correlation between your current city and the next city you're going to, as I realized that you're in San Antonio now, the home of the beautiful Riverwalk, and you're moving to Oklahoma City, where their Bricktown area has tried to recreate some of the majesty of San Antonio's Riverwalk. Have you been down there yet?
I have. So I haven't actually spent a lot of time in Bricktown. I'm usually up on 23rd, kind of just on that strip of bars, and then I'll be living more like Midtown area. So
I remember when I was there,
excited to explore.
They were like, "Oh, well, we built this because have you ever been to San Antonio's Riverwalk? That's kind of what we were going for." And I'm like, "Oh, so you're
interesting. I did not know that." So
yeah. So you also Fort Lauderdale would be a good city for you if you just like rivers running around everywhere and bodies of water underneath you. They've also got a lot of inlets.
I do like water.
So to think of what other cities have got rivers running through them for you, and that can can be the way you move around the world.
I stick to the rivers and the lakes that I'm used to,
There you go. And as long as you don't go chasing waterfalls, as they say.
Exactly.
Although there is a beautiful waterfall in the Ozarks the next time you're there. It's the tallest waterfall east of the Rockies.
Okay. I'll definitely have to check that out.
It's about a mile hike off of the Buffalo National River, which coincidentally is the very first national river ever established in this country. It's called the Hemden Hollow. And it's close to another weird waterfall called the Glory Hole, which is kind of what it thinks like. It's a huge hole in the ground, and then there's a waterfall that falls through it. Both worthy of checking out.
I will. You're just full of trivia. You should start a podcast or something.
Yeah, maybe. Anyone want to hear more? Check out my podcast starting it next week. All right. Well, I understand that you, like every other guest bartender that has come on this show, has a cocktail prepared for us that's personal, and this is something that you would love to share with us today. So I'm interested in hearing more about it.
Do you want me to make it now for you?
Yeah, that sounds great. While you do that, I'm going to eat. I just found this packed bag of Sour Patch Kids underneath my microphone. So I'm going to eat that real quick.
Okay. So I, didn't have a whole lot of time to prep anything.
Yeah.
So I kind of just threw something together, but this is a coconut fat washed gin cocktail with the heirloom new Amaro, pineapple Amaro. These are the guys that do Bitter Cube. I was really
Yeah.
interested to try this. The pineapple Amaro is like definitely going to be one of my home bar staples now. Just a little bit of Lillet Blanc and then citrus bitters. So it's basically a stirred pina colada.
Yeah. No, I'm so excited to make this myself now that I see what it is. I love pink coconut and pineapple are like two of my favorite flavors that have ever lived together.
Okay, so I started off with 2 ounces of the coconut washed beef eater. I'm going to do a half ounce of Lillet Blanc. I'm also, moving, and I'm working off of like a outdoor table, and so it has all of these slats in between this
Yeah, I love your bar. Your
tablecloth.
back bar though is beautiful.
Thank you.
Are you going to be able to bring that to Oklahoma with you?
I am. So I'm actually driving a U-Haul for the first time ever.
Hell yeah.
Terrified of it. I just did 3/4 ounce of the pineapple Amaro, and I'm going to do about 2 dashes of the Hella Bitters citrus bitters. And I'm just going to give that a couple stirs on a large cube because I don't have any small ones because I let them melt.
That is fine. Like we say around here, take your ice any way you can get it.
Exactly. It's still cold. And I didn't prep a garnish because I suck at life. But I made one of these earlier and it was delicious, so I anticipate this one to be delicious as well. It is.
Excellent. That looks so good. So just a quick recap on the ingredients and the measurements.
2 ounces coconut fat washed beef eater, half ounce Lillet Blanc, 3/4 ounce heirloom pineapple Amaro, and 2 dashes Hella Bitters citrus bitters.
Okay. And I know that there's a lot of people that understand fat washing of spirits, but there's going to be some people that don't. Could you give kind of a basic introduction of how someone might go about coconut fat washing their gin? And then we can include
Sure.
some more literature. And I'll put a link on to there's a site that I like that really explains it well on a step-by-step basis. But
In a nutshell, fat washing is taking a very flavorful fatty oil, basically. You can use bacon grease, you can use unfiltered coconut oil, which is what I use. You can use, duck fat if you want to, all kinds of different varieties. And then you melt that down. You basically just pour the liquid alcohol into it. And that will kind of infuse the alcohol with the flavor of the oil, because ethanol actually will absorb that flavor. Then you put it in the freezer. The fat will all rise to the top, and you can kind of pluck the little disc of fat out of there. And then just filter that alcohol a couple of times. I did a really poor job of doing that myself today because I was in a rush. But yeah, and then you're left with kind of a much softer spirit that really has like a soft,
it's almost like a
whatever flavor
buttery
you used aftertaste.
mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of my favorite ways to infuse alcohol with things. But the reason that for the listeners at home, because ethanol is it's lipophilic, it likes fat. So those fat molecules from the flavors are going to leave and stay. Actually, some of those are going to get attached to the individual chains of molecules that exist inside the ethanol. Those are going to stick behind, but when you freeze that fat, it's going to all stay onto the top because it's going to separate. This is probably way too much of a scientific explanation for this, so I'm probably going to just cut this out. But either way, fat washing is a really cool way to add pretty much any flavor that exists that's oily or fatty, that wouldn't mix well with water-based things will mix wonderfully with alcohol. So keep that in mind. But I love that this is essentially a pina colada, but without any without using the typical flavors you would typically see in a pina colada. There's no rum. I don't know. Very excited. Very unique recipe. I really like that. I cannot wait to try it. I'm gonna fat wash some gin tonight. Does it need to be a London Dry, or is that just what you
That's just kind of
chose?
what I used. Yeah, that's what I had.
I'm interested to see how other more like botanical gins would take that coconut flavor. That might be a good thing to kind of mess around with.
Yeah. I guess I do have Alchemist, which is one of my favorite like botanical gins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just really excited about this heirloom. I hadn't tried it yet, and
I have
it's
not either.
absolutely delicious. I'm excited for anything pineapple flavored, honestly.
Yeah, I do. I love pineapple. Pineapple juice is like one of those secret things that I always end up putting into cocktails that I probably shouldn't. So I was like, well, it's like a little different. I was like, there's just a little dash of pineapple juice in there. Don't worry about it. Opens it
Yeah,
up.
I was staring at my home bar and I was like, oh, I really want to do something with pineapple and absinthe. And then I didn't, but
Yeah. What are you gonna do? All right. Well, I think, like I said, like I was telling Maren before, I got my second vaccine shot today, and I'm feeling a little out of it right this second. So this is a little bit shorter of an episode, and I maybe rambled a little bit more than I would prefer. But I do really appreciate Maren for joining me today for this episode. So before we get out of here, I want to make sure that people can follow you. And we also, what we like to do for every one of our bartenders that makes a cocktail for us is we like to provide your Cash App or Venmo, or not Zelle because that's just your phone number, but Cash App or Venmo, so people can tip you if they really enjoy the cocktail. It's a way that we can give back to the hospitality industry and the bartenders that we have on the show. Is there a particular one that you would like to give out?
Sure. So my handle for everything is just my first name and my middle name together. So Maren Nazera, all lowercase, no spaces or underscores or anything. So that will work for Instagram. It's facebook.com/Maren Nazera. It's linkedin.com/Maren Nazera.
So Maren Nazera will get you all the things. All
exactly. Except for Cash App, it's MAR3N.
And then Nazera or just MAR3N?
Nope, just MAR3N.
MAR3N on Cash App.
Mm-hmm.
Simple. We'll make it a lot easier for you guys to tip her for this wonderful cocktail. Do we have a name for this cocktail?
It can be the Crawley Pina Colada because that's my dog's name and I like pina coladas.
Perfect. The Crawley Pina Colada, courtesy of Crawley
and
Maren.
He did all of the work here.
Well, appreciate that. Like I said, make sure you go follow Maren at Maren Nazera across all channels. And if you want to send her a tip for this wonderful cocktail, at MAR3N. Of course, you can always follow me at the UB Podcast across all channels. And if you want to get a hold of me personally, at Keith A. Carter on Instagram is the best way to go about that. So like I end every show, I do like to let you say whatever you'd like, put it out into the world. You get to close the show out however you want by hopping on point, and I'm going to get on Service Bar. And the show is yours to close out with whatever words that you would like to say and put out into the universe.
For some reason, I thought you were talking about Service Bar in DC, and I was like, oh, yeah, I like that place.
No, it's the way in which I try to use bar terms to say that I'm going to let you have point here.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me, Keith. This has been an absolute delight getting to chat with you. And now you have someone in Oklahoma, and I have another person in New York.
Yeah.
And I hope that Crawley wasn't whining too loud. He does enjoy doing that. And I'm very excited to start a new endeavor in Oklahoma City, and I hope to see some familiar faces there.
All right. Well, like I said, thanks again for joining us on the show. Have a wonderful weekend. Go Hogs. Let's win the national championship. Hopefully that'll have happened before I talk to you guys again. Go get your vaccine. That's all, and I'll see y'all at the bar.